Welcome, welcome, sir. And as Managing Director at Guardian Vietnam, Ms. Le Huynh Thuc. Can we have a round of applause? And of course, as founder and chair of UN Ventures, Mr. Dirk van Motman. Please welcome all of our panelists on stage. Welcome, welcome. Please come on stage. Panelists. Good to have you. All right, panelists, and Mr. Dadwal, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How's the session been so far? Hello. Okay, so icebreaker. How many people think they need to understand if there is a change in organization structures that will happen in days to come? Will the organizations that you work with remain the same in terms of the structure, or should they change, or would they change? Can I have a raise of hands? How many people believe that they will change? Okay. So I have the pleasure of having an esteemed panel talking about the leadership changes and navigating this change that we are talking about. The idea of this panel really is to construct what we believe or what we understand, the technology, the innovation, the advent of AI, the advent of MarTech, AdTech, etc., how that will impact organizations, and not limiting to marketing organization, but overall organization. The discussion that was happening at the panel before that was all about the consumer experience. The whole consumer experience, the marketing, omni-channel, etc., is going to lay the foundation of the new age of customers, the new age of thinking about how you address the customer. And marketing is one of the functions of addressing the customer. So I have with me Vishnu, Mohan, Ms. Thuc, and Dirk, who are going to help us understand from a CEO perspective how organizations are looking at changing the integration of technology, but the impact of culture and readiness or speed of that change. So with that, let me come to you, Ms. Thuc, first. What is that essential element of change an organization, a leadership should look at as they start this journey, as they move forward?
So I work in the FMCG before, and over the last couple of years, I work in retail business. So I speak from that perspective. Yeah. What I see these days, with all the technology change and the speed of change happening everywhere, one of the key challenges for the leaders, the leadership in the organization, is around the digital literacy. Sounds basic, right? But it is. So as a CEO or as the head of department these days, not everybody really meet the level of digital literacy that we need to move forward to the futures. So we start from there with the different programs to develop those people first. Start from there. And secondly, in terms of the business objective, how it linked with the digital transformations. So it's not about the IT, not really about the IT, it's about the transformation across the department so that we can leverage the technologies for the operational efficiency, for example.
Vishnu, coming to you. This literacy, is it easy to transcend boundaries? Especially in a services industry where there's a lot of dependency on training and adaptability and skill sets. How easy is it to transcend boundaries? And then, coupled with that, is literacy at the top important to begin with, or is it at the bottom?
I think I'll answer this question in a couple of. Firstly, I come from an organization that provides both technology and marketing services. So we come from the other end where we are helping marketing or organizations to enhance their AI transformation. A lot of changes in history has been very linear. You know, they go incremental, etc. Even digital change that we have seen over a period of 2 decades has been still very linear. It's not been so dramatic. AI has been very, very different, right? In a very short period of time, it has kind of given a very exponential, started to go very. Now, from an organizational perspective, what that meant was that this required a very different level of internal change than what any other aspect of change has ever required. And that meant that we had to integrate knowledge from a culture perspective. So a very large organization like the one that we have, which is, okay, it's still 5,000 people organization, we had to look at it from 3 different aspects of knowledge awareness. One was organic. So there were people like, within the 5,000 people, there were 50 people who were like absolute at the top. They knew everything out there. And there were people below who had, so organically, we had to create a culture, which we called it as a collective, whereby we allowed every single person in the company to go and test out any new product that is coming into the company and bring it to the fore to the system. And any tool that was available, we helped them subscribe to it and support it. And then we moved from organic in parallel to what we call structured training. So we created a whole bunch of master classes around various aspects of it to get a wider organization at different levels of training to start to come to terms with what this was. And the third part of it was we allowed funding. And funding was because we knew that in order to get to clients, we'll have to demonstrate POCs. We'll have to demonstrate real, tinier, smaller proof of concepts to get to them that this is how it can help. Be it from a cost perspective, which was the most obvious one because that everybody could see it because to some extent AI was available even before ChatGPT came in. But also from a value perspective in terms of new stuff that earlier AI could not do that was being created there. So I think there's a combination of those 3 elements that helped permeated through the whole organization that was the starting point of how to get an organizational readiness for something that was as dramatic as AI.
So I'll come to you next. And just picking on that point, there's this whole thesis about agility, adaptability, etc. So Dick, coming to you, what is the role of agility or speed when you're adapting all this? And is that sometimes at the detrimental of the organization structure or the consumer experience?
Okay, let me frame my answer. First and foremost, I'm an organizational sociologist by training that had to do a major in marketing as well. That got me into advertising. So I look at organizations as organisms, yeah? And try to understand why they do what they do versus what they should be doing. That's one. Second, the company that we founded, it's called UN. And UN is about the necessity that you need to un yourself throughout your life as an individual or as a company from time to time. See it as you 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. So that means change is completely embedded in there. Now, how do you change yourself? By understanding what your role is as an entity, as a company, as an individual. In this particular case, it's about we need to build brands and businesses in an environment that is requesting speed and skill. You need to build brands and business and speed and skill. 10 years ago, it was we need to build brands and businesses effectively and efficiently. You need to now do that at speed and skill. How do you do that? And that's we think, by focusing on a value proposition, not a form proposition. The moment you define yourself as a form, like the combustible engine car, then you will be outsprinted by the battery-operated car because it's a new form factor, right? So first and foremost is focus on the customer, focus on the value that you bring to market. It's almost like designing backwards. Yeah? If you start out from technology and organization, you will box yourself in. is you start out from a value proposition, you will know that you need to change. My favorite analogy, I'm sorry, I like football, but I always liken organizations as a football team. You have a limited budget, that allows you to have 11 players on the field. What kind of players do you have? At which point of time? Against which type of opponent? And I think you need to look at the organization like that. And so for me, it's about, capabilities are interchangeable. You should be ready to sell a player, change the capability, but it doesn't mean that you need to change culture. Your culture can still be the same. Yeah, I know that there are tons of companies that talk about we have a winning culture, which I always go like, well, yeah, if you don't want to win, why play? But you have a certain culture, and you say like, we want to be X, we want to be this company, this position, and with these cultural values, then you should be doing that differently over time.
Sure, and I'm sure every organization wants to win. If you're not there to win, then I find the purpose to be beaten. But in your case, in an environment where you have a retail network, you obviously don't have 11 players, you have 11,000 players. Some of the players who don't even necessarily understand the core culture of the company at a retail front or a store front. How do you manage that agility, speed, and the structure that Vishnu was talking about? And how does that transcend, or how should that transcend into the people? Because people make culture. Organization gives the foundation, but people are the backbone of the industry, of any organization. How do you do that? What would your advice be?
I'm having around across the organization, including on the frontline team right now, humble numbers, still around 1,000 team members. And there's two things. I think the most critical one, the first of all is about the consistent communications from the top to the front line. So we need to enhance over the couple of months, we need to enhance, over communicate about certain things that we want to move forward. For example, like business model. So how we gonna deal with the change of the customers' needs and requirements these days, the touch point, etc. So over communicating on certain things and keep the message very single-minded and cut it through on the layers. And second critical success factor, I think, is around more than ever, flattering the hierarchies in the organization is very important, because come back to metaphor is about the body, right? So it's required the agility over there and the speed over there. So we need to focus to strengthen our muscles and cut down on the fats over there, and the layer create the fats in the organization. So that's why in the past it's around the efficiency, but this day is about we change, we cut through, or we die. So I think those are two critical factors.
Go ahead, Dirk. You want to...
Thank you for picking up on the body part, because we talk about a spine and alignment in that. And if you need to move at speed and skill, you need to have direction and energy. And you cannot move if you have a slipped disc. And the analogy for a slipped disc is one part of your organization, doesn't measure up. For give you a small example, if you come from a long flight from New York, every check-in was great, onboard experience was great, but you wait half an hour for your suitcase, and the airline says, yeah, but it's our handling partner. It's a goofing up of the total experience, right? That's a third, it's a luxury example, but it's about the alignment so that you can move with direction and energy. And we just completed a project for a company that we reoriented from a wealth and health company to a readiness company, ready to do at any point of time your goals that you stated. And in that spine, we says everybody should be measured against delivering readiness. How does finance deliver to us becoming the readiness company? How does marketing deliver versus becoming the readiness company? Of course, you have your subset in there, but to have that clarity of purpose, which one of you talked about, I think is essential. Clarity and consistency. And then the other part is to demonstrate how everybody can contribute, or to allow everyone to the flattened hierarchy express how they can contribute to that particular goal. I think that's essential.
Vishnu, building on that, there is always a positive nature of the change, and change is constant, as they say. But it also comes at a cost of legacy, right? How do you manage legacy, and what would your advice be to the people in the room of transcending between legacy and change? Because if you were to change drastically, you are losing out on legacy, which is in a lot of cases very valuable. That's where the culture is built to begin with. So how do you transcend those boundaries?
I think it's a very good point. Even if we look at some of the researches done around breaking organizations into various quadrants of what organizations are, you will always find that there is a segment of organization which you can put them in a fearful bracket within an organization itself, and even within an organization. Because the first fact that AI led, that many of the people thought, I'm going to lose my job tomorrow. And as organizational, leaders, the first element of that aspect was, how do you kind of show them that this is not a substitution, this is an enhancement, or this is a skills enhancement to productivity gains. And for an organization like us, for example, where creativity is a key element to this thing, the first element, the creative guys came, oh my God, this is going to kill creativity, right? And in the first case study that we saw, we actually saw the fact that while there was so much more, we do 7,000 iterations or 15,000 iterations for a brand within a matter of minutes at times. This is not good. So to transform the language of that Gen AI inspired creativity as against Gen AI substituted creativity, change the language. So, and led by the people who are actually already executive creative directors in the organization, who were able to prove that conversation that, look, my creative output using Gen AI is actually better, because not because I'm using Gen AI to give the final output, because I'm getting inspired by Gen AI to come up with something that I would have not been able to come out otherwise. So I think that is a fundamental element that you need to kind of instill to move from your point about how do you unbuckle or how do you unshackle legacy constraints in organizations.
Okay, so I'm going to give an opportunity to the audience in about, after the next question, I would want to come to the audience to ask if you have any questions for the panel. We want to make it a little bit more interactive based on the discussion that's happening. So if you do have any questions, please raise your hands. We'll get this mic across to you. But more of a question and less of a comment if you have. Mr. If I were to come to you, if that is the change of the culture, change or transcending that change and legacy, what are some of the strategies as a CEO you think one should adapt, like bullet points of what should it be? Is it just the communication? Is it the right hiring? What part of it should be the priority to go forward? We heard in the first presentation also, communication is going to be key. Consistent communication. We understood that. But what do you do? How do you get there?
So more technical terms right now. When I heard the words of system legacy, for example, I smile because it's a pain point of any retailer. Any retailers, we have a lot of kind of system legacy to deal with the change these days because of the model of retails. So 3 keywords. The first one is the radio modernization. So if we don't have the luxury to move from 1 to 10, so we have the capability to move from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, and go on until 10. So that's the first keyword. The second keyword that I find that it's very interesting is we allow the what we call like the ABI iteration. So it's not always need to change on the system legacy. So it requires a bit of the ABI iteration in the middle, in the interim, before we make the next change. The third one is the cloud-based. I think technology-wise these days, it allows us to have certain platform rather than we build everything in-house, then limit ourselves from the flexibility and the agility to adapt. So yeah, I hope it answers.
Basically, using technology in the phase of change, using technology as a partner, or using partners who have the right technology to make that change happen. When you're looking at the integration of technology, are there any best practices, Vishnu, I'll come to you, that you've seen being deployed working with a lot of brand marketeers, agencies, etc.? Are there any 1 or 2 best practices that you may have seen which has yielded immediate results versus long-term commitment?
The one which is the most common one that we are seeing, which is in the area of transcreation, is in the area of content creation at scale, automation, all of these which are now AI-led tools. That's immediate, right? Because that's really creating personalization at scale. That's instant value creation, cost cutting, all of that is happening. So I think these are elements that are automatically there right now. So translation into multiple languages at a speed. All these are very AI-driven stuff that you don't have to kind of reams and reams of paper summarized into this thing. All the AI assistants, all the chatbots that you are seeing. So these are obviously quick wins that you can insert into any organization very quickly to start demonstration of AI. And not only at any one particular, these are the stuff that you can actually cut across the entire 11,000 people that you spoke about. Everybody can see the value of it at some point or the other of some scale.
Nick, I'll come to you next. We are talking about digital leadership or leadership in the digital age. What's the difference between leadership of the last decade and the next decade that's going to be? Is digital even important to be called out? Like an example I'll give you. 10 years back, there was no chief digital officer. That role did not exist 10 years back. Now, that role again does not exist because 80% of the budgets are spent on digital, and CMO is now the new digital or whatever. How does that change from a leadership CEO level organization perspective in your way?
I think this question very nicely kind of crystallizes all the discussions that we have here about change. So in order to change the CMO of 10 years ago, you had to create a new role that was the Chief Digital Officer. Because for some reason, the CMO wouldn't change or was not thought that he or she could change. So they created that as a catalyst to change. I think, digital is an enabler. It's a way of doing things. And in a lot of cases where we had complete digital businesses, we have, as they say at P&G, the pendulum always swings from one side to another, and it falls somewhere in the middle. Completely digital businesses, in a lot of cases, have learned that they also need an offline component to the whole thing. So I think it's balancing out. But for me, the important part about your question was that you needed to have this outside thing to change the marketing role, which I want to pick up on Thuc's point about the fact that she paces change within her organization. I think that is a very important point, because if you know that you can pace change in your organization, you're already wired for change. Yeah? I think that is a crucial part of leadership. Wire the organization for change. If you indulge me for 1 second, because he mentioned a point which had me as a flashback about 15 iteration. I remember when I was leading, Dentsu, the content and creative business globally, I remember sitting down with ECDs and having a conversation about programmatic creativity. At that time, it was all about programmatic media. And I said, programmatic creativity is there as well. It's the next thing. And we had very big debates about the big idea. It's the big idea. It's like, but are you not interested in having your big idea delivered in 10,000 different ways at 10,000 different points of contact? Because then it's a really big idea. And I think I wanted to touch upon that because that's the elephant in the room. Change does require painful decisions as well. And it's about the mindset, which you talked about as well with AI. For me, AI is like, I didn't see it coming, but the way I look at the world is we have opposing forces. We have a growing world population, and we have technology that is productivity-led. So what does it mean? Jobs will change.
Yeah. Vishnu, you wanted to add something.
I said it's quite interesting that you asked about the digital and marketing. I would argue one step forward because I think in the future, there will be only four level of leadership at the top. There will be a CEO, there will be a chief marketing and technology officer. I think the bridge between the tech and marketing is also getting narrower and narrower. And technology such as AI now will start this education bridge even further, and you'll actually have that. So I think there will actually be a CEO, chief marketing, sales, and technology and digital officer all integrated into one, a chief financial officer, and a chief culture officer, which will be all around people and culture in the organization. That will just be the 3 levels of leadership.
Okay, I'm going to take this opportunity to go to the room and see if anybody has any questions to the panelists. I'm sure somebody has a question. Nobody? Is the panel that good? Okay, there's one question. Can we get a mic across to the gentleman in the middle?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just excited that we have a question right now.
That's why I'm doing this, all right. Ralph from IFM Research. Just very quickly, to Dirk's point, which I thought was really, really relevant. I think sometimes we get caught up in everything that's new and digital and whatever else, and I think you made a very valid point that it is a touch point, okay? And also, I think someone over here said that 80% of all spend is being accommodated to digital. With everything new, things start to get boring after a while, yeah? My question is to the entire panel, do you believe that digital spend at 80% will continue? Because there's also new things coming online, which will be different as well. So I'd love to hear some feedback on that. Thanks.
Shape of spend. I think I go back to the point about how do you build brands and businesses at speed and scale in a world where you will have constantly new technologies. I think it depends on where you are as a particular brand. In most of the recent Forrester CMO researches, brand came out on top over performance marketing. And it always baffles me that people like to break it down like American politics, which is one versus the other. Sorry to bring that one into the room, but it is not a binary thing. It is about your ability to dial and to see what you need at what point of time. I think that is real mastery of a particular capability. And if you put that in the context of your overall brand and business strategy and objectives, I think then you have the makings of something successful. But if you look at it in a binary fashion, I think you will always follow the fad.
I like this phrase about the fact that the unpredictability of future is what keeps us alive and exciting. Rupert Murdoch was once asked, as to, can you predict the next technology or next big company? And he said, I don't know it. And he was asked, why don't you know it? He said, maybe it's not even born yet. So it's very difficult to basically say where that is heading as to what you will be saying in the future in terms of shape and size of Spence.
May I chip in? From a business side, I'm interested in whatever technologies can bring me less costs and higher sales. Then I go.
So with 30 seconds left, one word from each of you, from a leadership perspective, what would the leadership of tomorrow be?
For me, it's lifelong learning.
Okay.
Inspire.
I'd written 5 C's down earlier. So for me, it's about 4 C's: curiosity, clarity, consistency, and allowing for contribution.
Curiosity. So I'll take the first word, curiosity. With that, thank you so much, panelists, and thank you to the audience. I hope you found it intriguing, exciting, but also challenging to understand where we are all heading collectively, because change is constant, and the only way to deal with it is to lead it. So I hope you, in your in your own shape format, would do that when you go back and start to admire the change that's going to come and dwell upon us. Thank you so much. You have a good afternoon.